Yes, the question is, motion is seconded. Thank you. Question is that all the business on today's order paper be exempted from the provisions of paragraph 2 of Standing Order 10. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it.
Statements by Ministers, non-public bill, second reading.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Yes, Madam Speaker, before I start my speech, I just want to remind the House and the Leader of Opposition, since he was protesting of not having a last question, of a notorious speaker who was named Fokir. I just want to remind him that since you are in the chair, not a single member has been expelled out of his house. Not a single member has been named. Not a single member has been deprived of his rights. And today he's protesting because he hasn't get a last question. I just wanted to remind the days of this notorious Fokir. Madam Speaker,
Minister,
let me come to my...
Get on with your debate, please.
Yes. Let me come to the budget speech. Madam Speaker, this is a budget of responsibility, but it is also a budget of ambition. It repairs what had to be repaired, it protects what had to be protected, and it launches a serious national shift towards production, exports, and enterprise, a shift that lies at the heart of the work of my ministry. I thank the Honourable Prime Minister for entrusting me with this portfolio and with this challenge. I do not regard it as a title. I regard it as a mission to rebuild production, to support enterprise, and to make Mauritius more competitive in a world that will not wait for us. Madam Speaker, when this government took office in November 2024, we found an economy in far more fragile health than our people had been led to believe. Look at the public finances we inherited. Deficit for the financial year 2024 and 25 had reached 9.3% of GDP. Public sector debt was pressing towards the 90%. The cost of merely carrying that debt was crushing. In 2025 to 2026 budget, rupees 26.9 billion was spent on interest payments alone, more than a tenth of everything the state spent. Money gone before it could reach any classroom, a hospital bed, a road, a pension, or a single productive investment. To grasp how far we had fallen, we should recall the position barely a decade earlier. In 2014, this country held its debt under 60% of GDP, and it kept its deficit to around 3%. You just imagine for 10 years, we went from 60% of debt to almost 90% of debt for this country. And in 10 years, that discipline was squandered. The room for maneuver was lost, and the bill was quietly handed to the next generation. That, Madam Speaker, is the inheritance. The figures in this budget tell a different story, a story of repair. The deficit has been cut that inherited 9.3% of GDP to an estimated 6% in 2025 to 2026. And it is set to narrow again to 3.7% in 2026 to 2027. In 2 years, we have more than halved it. That is genuine repair of the public finances. We have done it without inflicting blood austerity on our people. The debt is turning too. Having stood at 88.5% of GDP in 2025, public sector debt is put at 681.9 billion by the end of June 2026, equal to 87.8% of GDP. And it is projected to ease to 85.5% a year after that. And government has fixed a clear objective. We want to bring it back under the 80% mark by June 2029. The wider economy is also showing clear signs of recovery. The economy grew by 3.2% in 2025, and income per head rose by 3.3%. Inflation, which had run at roughly 7% in a year between 22 and 24, and at a point touched a painful 11.3%, was brought back to 3.7%. Unemployment fell from 6% to 5.7%, among the lowest rates we have known in 20 years. And our official, and this is not merely our own assessment, the institutions that watch us closely have taken note. In its issuer comment of May 2026, Moody's pointed to the first tangible sign of progress in the execution of our budget, acknowledging that this government has taken the difficult fiscal decision the moment demanded, and the agency has kept Mauritius at its investment-grade Baa3 rating. The International Monetary Fund, concluding in 2026 Article 4 mission, found that Mauritian economy has, in its own words, exhibited resilience, even as the conflict in the Middle East weighs on our region. And it singled out our graduation to SDDS Plus as proof of our commitment to transparency. The World Bank, for its part, has highlighted the resilience of our diversified economy and a labor market that has driven unemployment to its lowest level in 2 decades. When the rating agencies, the IMF and the World Bank, all agree that Mauritius is moving in the right direction in one of the most turbulent global environment in living memory, that is recognition worth having. The job is not finished. Our debt remains too high, and we must hold our nerve and stay the course. But the drift has stopped. The country has turned from decline towards discipline, and discipline is what now gives us the means to invest in the productive economy. Madam Speaker, fiscal stability is necessary, but on its own, it will not build prosperity. Reducing expenditure is necessary. Eliminating waste is a duty. But let us be honest with the House, with this House and the nation. No country ever became prosperous by spending less. Countries became prosperous by earning more. And you earn more by producing more, by making more, by selling more to the world. No nation have ever saved its way to greatness. A country must produce. It must make things, it must innovate, it must export. It must create value at home and sell that value to the world. It is a deeper shift this government is making, moving Mauritius from an economy built on consumptions, on imports, to one built on production, enterprise, and growth. The trade figures alone show why we cannot delay. Statistics Mauritius puts our merchandise trade deficit at 211.3 billion in 2025, up from 207.8 billion in 2025. And it is expected to climb towards 215 billion in 2026. No country can read such numbers and pretend that consumption alone will carry its future. And no one imagine that production is something for poorer countries do, something a modern economy outgrows. The very opposite is true. Singapore, one of the world's greatest financial centers, deliberately keeps manufacturing at around 1/5 of its economy, treating it as a strategic anchor of growth and employment. Switzerland, among the wealthiest nations on earth, remains a manufacturing powerhouse in pharmaceutical, in precision equipment, in machinery. These are not economies that have abandoned the factory floor on the road to prosperity. They held on it deliberately. If nations of that wealth and sophistication refuse to give up production, a small and exposed island like ours has every reason to hold on it too. We have already learned the price of leaning too heavily on a narrow set of sectors. The pandemic taught it. Disruption to global shipping has taught it. The geopolitical tensions of today are teaching it again. An island that imports a large share of what it eats and almost everything its factories use cannot allow its productive base to collapse. When external shocks come, production is not a luxury, it is a national resilience. This is why manufacturing must return to the center of our economic strategy. Manufacturing is not a marginal sector. It is the backbone of our tradable economy. It accounts to around 30% and around of GDP and around 15% of total employment and around 80% of domestic exports. It used to be 18%. Switzerland, which is a service-based economy, has its manufacturing base around 20%, Madam Speaker. Today, it is supported by 223 export-oriented enterprises, 284 large domestic-oriented enterprises, and 17,213 manufacturing SMEs. For more than a decade, however, the production base has weakened. Let the numbers speak plainly, Madam Speaker. The share of manufacturing fell from 15.5% in 2014 to 12.8% in 2024. The combined number of oriented enterprise and domestic enterprises fell from 684 in 2014 to 512 in 2024. Domestic exports stagnated around 50 billion in 2024, a level reached back in 2014. In real terms, adjusted for the depreciation of the rupee, domestic exports have contracted from 50 billion rupees to 37 billion rupees, a decline of roughly 26%, masked only by currency weakness. FDI into manufacturing ran on average at only about 5% of total flows over the past decades. And by 2025, it had fallen to just 38 million rupees, a figure that speaks for itself. Madam Speaker, this is not industrial transformation. It is a cost of industrial neglect. I say it with care. Our manufacturers in Mauritius did not fail. They kept investing, they kept exporting and employing through difficult years. They fought rising costs, labor shortages, freight disruption, fierce competition, and uncertain market access. What failed was the absence of a serious national production strategy. Industrial policy, its focus. Export promotion was weakened. Investment promotion for manufacturing was never given the urgency that other sectors enjoyed. The result is there in the numbers, and we cannot hide from it. This government will not repeat this mistake. Madam Speaker, the international environment is unforgiving. Our exporters face low-cost competition, high trade barriers, and constant pressure to defend and expand their market share. They face uncertainty over preferential access, including the future of AGOA. They face geopolitical tension, disruption to shipping routes, and weaker growth in the very markets they sell to. At home, productivity remains too low and the uptake of technology too uneven. Our standard must be sharpened. We need an industrial architecture that would move faster, support firms better, and open markets more aggressively. The answer is not to shelter inefficiency. The answer is to build competitiveness, and this is the heart of this budget. Madam Speaker, to meet these challenges facing our manufacturing economy, government is putting in place a serious industrial policy. At its center, a new industry bill, Its purpose is to give modern legal foundation to rebuild our industrial and export capacity and to make Mauritius once again a competitive home for manufacturing and a credible platform for selling to the world. This is one of the most important reforms for the productive economy in a generation. We need it because the world has changed. Competition is tougher. Buyers are more demanding. Tariffs more uncertain. Compliance stricter. Technology cycle faster. In that world, Mauritius cannot run its industry with yesterday's tools. We need a framework that is agile, forward-looking, practical, institutions that move at the speed of investors and markets, and policy that is not trapped in files, but translated into factories, jobs, exports, and foreign exchange. The industry bill is therefore not a narrow legal exercise, it is an economic reset, Madam Speaker. The bill will re-empower my ministry as a driving force and the gateway for industrial development, with a stronger framework for policy, coordination, export promotion, investment facilitation, data, standards, and delivery. Alongside it, my ministry is preparing a new industrial sector strategic plan for 2026 to 2030 with the support of UNIDO, due by December this year, to chart the next phase of industrial development around higher value-added production, technology adoption, and export competitiveness and market diversification. Most important of all, this budget entrusts my ministry with establishing the Mauritius Industry and Export Development Agency, the operational arm that will accelerate investment in manufacturing, increase the pool of exporters, and broaden our reach in export markets. This is not about creating bureaucracy, it is about creating focus. For years, manufacturing had to compete for attention inside bodies with many other mandates, and it is now consistently crowded out. A country that wants to export must have an institution built to export. A country that wants to industrialize must have an institution built to industrialize. This agency will be manufacturing's dedicated champion, attract industrial investment, support exporters, open market, help firms scale, and make Mauritius a credible production for the region and the world. And the budget sets a bold target to match, doubling the value of our goods export, lifting it from 1.5 billion USD to 3 billion USD within the next 5 years, Madam Speaker. A production-led economy needs investment, and this budget rewards it. The investment tax credit for manufacturers worth 15% a year over 3 years, 40% in all, applies to what any manufacturing company spends on new plant and equipment, on artificial intelligence solution, on patents, with motor cars excluded. The relief was due to expire on 30th June this year. We are extending it to a further 3 years to 31st June 2029. But investment without creativity, productivity will not carry us. Low and declining production is among the clearest, weakest, and the estimates identify that the National Productivity and Competitiveness Council, the NPCC, will draw up and deliver a productivity master plan to lift productivity right across the economy. We cannot build an export economy on weak standards. The Mauritius Standards Bureau will go on playing its essential role in testing, certification, calibration, and conformity assessment. And we will strengthen the wider standards system so that our producers can meet the most demanding markets with confidence. This is a question of fairness here too. A local manufacturer who meets every standards, pays fair wages, pays taxes, and invests in quality should not be undercut by cheap substandards imports. This is why quality infrastructure, market surveillance, and conformity assessment are not paperwork. They are industrial policy. Alongside the Bureau, we will continue to support the Assay Office and Mauritas as pillars of trust in our production system. Madam Speaker, our exporters operate in a difficult global market. They need targeted support linked to real production, export readiness, certification, trade promotion, and access to new markets. Government will continue to help them make full use of trade agreements, including AFTA, COMESA, SADC, and our preferential arrangements. The renewal of AGOA up to December 2026 brought relief, but uncertainty remains. That is why government has re-engaged seriously with the United States through the agreement on reciprocal trade process, with the hope of securing a bilateral trade agreement that gives our exporters and investment greater certainty. Our Washington mission in April 2026, me and my colleague, Minister Ramphal, allowed Mauritius to defend its operators, show its commitment to labor standards, and to push for more stable trade framework. We will keep widening our market across Africa, Europe, the United States, India, and the Indian Ocean, to that no single market decides our fate. Madam Speaker, if manufacturing is the backbone of the tradable economy, our small and medium enterprises are the engine of inclusion. They are in every village, every town, and every region where a small enterprise grows, a family rises with it. When SMEs join the formal economy, the tax base widens. When they innovate, the whole economy grows more resilient. This budget gives them a clear path. Government will bring in an SME bill to make the business environment friendlier for small enterprises, while a new business facilitation bill cuts through the procedures and bottlenecks that hold them back. SME Mauritius will build a single digital platform that gathers in one place all the support government has to offer schemes, grants, tax incentive, and access to finance. An entrepreneur should not need a map, a lawyer, and free prayers to find the help that is meant for them. Madam Speaker, we will broaden the exemption from custom duty on eligible utility vehicles so that registered SMEs in transformative sectors qualify too, helping them cut costs, move goods and equipment, and invest in capacity. We will press on with formalization. Many in the informal economy have real talent and drive, yet they stand outside the system. They cannot borrow properly, they cannot bid for public contracts, they cannot scale. Formalization is not a penalty, it is a bridge to opportunity. The budget startup agenda will support SMEs as well. An eligible startup will enjoy a 10-year income tax holiday from its very first day of operation, and government will build a proper ecosystem around it, a dedicated startup act, a startup council, an accelerator scheme, a strong support for innovation. Madam Speaker, the SME for the next decade must be digital, productive, green, and ready to export. We will accelerate the take-up of e-commerce, digital payments, artificial intelligence, and modern management tools. We will spread proven productivity methods such as Kaizen and lean manufacturing, and we will work with financial institutions to widen access to finance for technology adoption, business expansion, and sustainable investment. We will help our SMEs into regional and global value chains, including through AFTA, and we will encourage green certification, cleaner technology, rooftop solar, battery storage, energy efficiency, and circular economy practices. The budget also tightens public procurement in our producers' favor. Madam Speaker, I now turn to the cooperative sector. Cooperatives are not a relic of the past. Properly modernized, they are a power tool for grassroots production, food security, entrepreneurship, and shared prosperity. This budget supports their modernization through the Terroir Mauricien Coopérative label, which will promote authentic local products made by cooperative societies, planters, farmers, breeders, beekeepers, and agribusiness operators. A sum of 7 million has been allocated for the project to be carried out with the Mauritius Chamber of Commerce and Industry, reaching out around 50 cooperative societies. It will include a digital product identity through a 2D barcode system, business support to open up new markets, and a distinctive label to lift visibility in supermarket, hotels, public procurements, fairs, and export channels. The aim is clear: produce well at home, create value, win the local market, and then go international. The Cooperative Acts will also be amended to strengthen governance, business transparency, accountability, facilitation, and categorization by size, and also bringing credit unions offering financial services within the scope of our AMLs and CFT obligations. Madam Speaker, let me say a few words quickly on the amendments brought to the Waqf Act, because there are some misunderstanding and people are going in all directions. I believe some clarification will be helpful, and I offer it in that spirit. These amendments are not a Mauritian initiative, and they are directed at no one. They are simply the application of standards set by Financial Action Task Force, the FATF, the same body that placed Mauritius on its grey list in 2020. A chapter this country worked very hard to put us behind. Waqf appears expressly in the text of FATF recommendations themselves. Recommendation 14, under the heading Other Legal Persons, refers, and I quote, to foundation, Anstalt, Waqf, and limited liability partnership. Where a Waqf is constituted as a legal arrangement, it falls instead under recommendation 25. And the oversight of the sector as a whole is guided by recommendation 8 of non-profit organization, which the FATF itself revised to ensure that such measures remain proportionate and never excessive. In other words, the Waqf is named by the FATF across its own standard. At all this bill does is bring our law gently in line with them. And I would simply like to offer reassurance to the point that caused the most concern. We are not touching the independence of Waqf Board. We are not touching the independence of Board of Waqf Commissioners. We are not transferring our Waqf to any outside agency. Some of them are creating some disruption to make people believe that this government is touching the Waqf. We are not doing that. If anything, we are doing the opposite. We are entrusting the board itself with a means to oversee the Waqf in its own charge, to keep proper records, to know the true beneficiaries, and where it should ever be necessary, to remove a person unfit to manage what is, after all, a sacred trust. The intention is not to weaken the board, but strengthen it and to align our law with standards. Madame la Présidente, je tiens à remercier le Premier ministre d'avoir accueilli avec attention les propositions de mon ministère et d'avoir placé le secteur manufacturier, l'exportation, la compétitivité et l'innovation au cœur de ce budget. Je remercie également mes mandants de la circonscription numéro 3, tous mes mandants, le régional MMM du numéro 3 et mon équipe pour la confiance qu'ils ont bien voulu placer en moi. Je sais précisément pourquoi je siège dans cette assemblée. Je suis pour travailler, je suis pour relever les défis, je suis pour livrer des résultats. Je le dis avec fierté en ma qualité de membre du mouvement militant mauricien, un mouvement dont l'histoire tout entière se confond avec l'engagement pour le dialogue, pour la solidarité et pour le service. Le MMM a toujours été porté par une conviction. Le changement durable ne naît pas des gestes spectaculaires ni des ultimatums, mais de l'engagement dans la durée et de ce travail patient, souvent ingrat, qu'est la construction d'un pays. Ce sont ces valeurs que je porte au sein de ce gouvernement, et ce sont ces valeurs que ce gouvernement met en œuvre chaque jour. Madame la Présidente, je ne peux conclure sans dire quelques mots sur la réforme des pensions, surtout sur la manière dont ce gouvernement y a répondu. Le budget a introduit une réforme du régime pension. et je ne vais pas faire semblant que cette réforme a soulevé des interrogations. Les critères de ressources, le means test posaient un véritable problème, en particulier quant à son impact sur les plus vulnérables, sur les principes d'universalité auxquels les Mauriciens se sont profondément attachés. En tant que membre du MMM, j'ai partagé mes préoccupations, mais ce qui compte, Madame la Présidente, c'est la manière dont nous les avons traités. Nous ne sommes pas allés sur les réseaux sociaux. Nous n'avons pas convoqué une conférence de presse. Nous ne sommes pas allés sur un plateau de radio pour alimenter la polémique. Nous n'avons pas brandi des menaces. Au MMM, nous ne faisons pas le spectacle et nous ne faisons pas des palabres. Nous avons fait ce qu'un partenaire responsable doit faire. Nous nous sommes réunis samedi dernier au bureau politique. Nous avons analysé la situation sérieusement. Nous avons examiné des solutions alternatives. Nous avons sollicité une rencontre avec le Premier ministre à travers le Deputy Prime Minister. Et il nous l'a accordé. Et nous nous sommes assis autour d'une même table avec toutes les parties concernées, partageant les mêmes lectures, les mêmes choses. Nous avons discuté, nous avons pris une décision ensemble, collectivement, parce qu'un gouvernement porte une responsabilité collective, Madame la Présidente. Le Premier ministre a écouté, il a fait preuve de sagesse en décidant de geler l'application des critères de ressources, le temps d'une réflexion plus approfondie. Je tiens à le saluer et à remercier sincèrement pour cette ouverture et pour cette écoute. C'est exactement cela le changement que nous avons promis aux Mauriciens, un gouvernement qui se parle à lui-même avant de parler aux médias, un gouvernement qui règle ses différends autour d'une table, non à coup de déclaration, un gouvernement qui collabore plutôt que de colporter, Madame la Présidente. Comme l'a dit un jour Jürgen Klopp, l'ex-entraîneur de Liverpool à ses supporters, « We have to change from doubters to believers ». Tel est l'état d'esprit qu'exige la vie publique. Lorsque le match se complique, on ne quitte pas le terrain. On reste soudés et on repart de l'avant vers le progrès et en continuant de se battre les uns pour les autres. C'est ainsi que je conçois mon devoir de ministre. C'est dans cet esprit que j'invite chaque acteur de notre économie à aborder le travail qui nous attend. Quand nous sommes au gouvernement, Madame la Présidente, même lorsque nous faisons face à des critiques, nous devons les assumer avec responsabilité. Nous ne choisissons pas la voie des discours populistes, ni celle des déclarations destinées uniquement à récolter des likes sur Facebook ou à prédire des défaites électorales plus que les 60-0. La démagogie ne fait pas partie de notre ADN, Madame la Présidente. Lorsqu'on appartient à une équipe, on reste unis et solidaires, dans des moments faciles comme dans des moments difficiles. Chacun doit jouer son rôle avec sens de responsabilité. Une équipe ne peut pas avancer si certains de ses membres passent leur temps à marquer des own goals. On a le devoir est de défendre collectivement nos convictions, d'assumer et de travailler ensemble. C'est dans cet esprit que nous continuons d'avancer avec sérieux, responsabilité et toujours dans l'intérêt du pays. Madame la Présidente, nous avons choisi la responsabilité, car le leadership politique ne consiste pas à préparer la prochaine élection, mais à protéger la prochaine génération. Merci, Madame.
Honourable members, since we have lost a bit of time this morning, I am suspending for 1 hour.